We hear about Bitcoin all the time, right? It's always about the price charts, the speculation, the latest tweet that sent it flying up or down. But today, we're going to look at a completely different story. One about survival, about empowerment, and how this technology is quietly changing millions of lives.
Just take a second and let that sink in. This one sentence from entrepreneur Stafford Masie completely reframes the entire global conversation about crypto. It yanks it out of the world of Wall Street and puts it right where it belongs, in the hands of everyday people who are up against some incredible challenges.
All right, so let's really dig into this. What is this fundamental difference in perspective? Because it's really at the heart of this entire story.
So on one side, you have the view that's super common in the developed world, where the whole conversation is just about investment returns. Coin go up, coin go down. But on the other side, in huge parts of Africa, Bitcoin isn't some kind of game, it's a life raft. It's a practical, absolutely essential tool for getting by in a broken financial system.
And look, that is not an exaggeration. The stakes could not be higher. When the traditional payment systems just fail, when money from family abroad can't get through, or when your life savings get wiped out overnight, the consequences are devastating, and they're immediate. This isn't some abstract economic theory. It's daily life.
So you might be asking, why on earth would anyone trade their local money for something as volatile as Bitcoin? Well, the answer is all about context. While someone in the West might worry about, say, 3% inflation over an entire year, many people in Africa are dealing with currencies that can lose 3% of their value in a single day. All of a sudden, Bitcoin's famous volatility doesn't look like a risk. It looks like an escape from the certainty of losing everything. To really get why Bitcoin is taking root like this, we have to wrap our heads around the sheer scale and context of the continent, a context that, frankly, most of us have been totally misinformed about.
Now, that's a pretty bold statement, but it's absolutely true. The standard world map we all saw in school, the Mercator projection, it wildly distorts how big countries and continents are, and the place that gets shrunk the most is Africa.
To put it in perspective for you, you can fit the entire United States, China, India, and most of Europe inside the landmass of Africa, and you'd still have room left over. We're talking about a continent with 54 different countries, covering more than 20% of all the land on Earth. It's just vast, it's diverse, and it is deeply, deeply underestimated.
And it's home to 1.5 billion people. That makes it the second most populous continent on the entire planet.
But here's the really crucial part, the demographics. Africa is, by far, the youngest continent in the world. Over 60% of the population is under the age of 20. So you've got this environment that isn't just open to new technology, it is hungry for it.
And this quote right here, it just connects all the dots. The problem isn't a lack of talent or ambition or resources. The core problem, the thing that drives people to make these incredibly dangerous journeys for a better life, is broken money. Because when you can't save, you can't build for the future. And when you can't build, you lose hope.
Okay, so how is this all playing out in the real world? Well, this isn't some top-down corporate movement. No, this is a grassroots revolution from the ground up.
This is so fascinating. The adoption is so practical, so widespread, that people aren't even talking about transacting in whole Bitcoins, which are worth thousands of dollars. No, they're using the smallest possible unit of a Bitcoin, a Satoshi, or Sat. It's basically the digital version of using pennies and dimes for all your daily shopping. And what are they buying with these Sats? Literally everything. You can walk into a township in South Africa and use Sats to pay for fuel, a piece of bubblegum, shampoo, or even building materials like corrugated iron and nails. This is Bitcoin being used as a real medium of exchange, right now, today. So how is this even possible, especially in places with spotty internet? Well, through some incredible local ingenuity. There's an app called Mockchinkura that lets anyone, and I mean anyone, send and receive Bitcoin using a simple SMS text message on a basic, old-school feature phone. Think about that. No internet, no smartphone needed. It's a brilliant solution that just leapfrogs over massive infrastructure problems. This story just captures the whole shift perfectly. A tourist from London goes to a rural village in Kenya, pulls out his British pounds and US dollars, and is told, "Sorry, we don't accept that here. We only take Satoshis." He showed up expecting to use old world money, and he literally left with a copy of the Bitcoin standard. How amazing is that?
Now here's what's so critical to understand. This adoption on the ground is creating these profound positive ripple effects, and they go way beyond just being a new way to pay for stuff.
So what happens when a community starts using hard money? Money that can't just be printed into oblivion. Well, first, people get a lot more careful about how they spend it. They start demanding higher quality stuff. And because of that, the local merchants have to step up their game. You see waste and trash go way down because people stop buying cheap, disposable junk. Crime and gangsterism start to collapse. And then, the most important part, hope, confidence, and a real focus on local culture. They all start to come back.
And this has a real, tangible impact on individual people's lives. Take the story of this talented young surfer in South Africa. He could never afford to compete internationally because any money he saved in the local currency, the rand, was just constantly melting away. But by saving in Bitcoin for a few years, he was able to actually preserve his wealth, buy plane tickets, and finally compete on the world stage, all because he had access to sound money.
Okay, so this leads us to the final piece of the puzzle. And honestly, it might be the most revolutionary idea of them all. A completely new way to measure if this technology is actually working.
Forget the price, just forget about it. Organizations like the Africa Bitcoin Corporation are pioneering a totally new metric they call human yield. The goal here isn't just number go up. The goal is to measure the actual, tangible, positive impact on human lives. How many jobs did we create? How many new businesses were started? How much hope did we restore?
And they're not just talking about it, they're making it super concrete. Their internal metric is that for every 1 Bitcoin they add to their treasury, their goal is to create 5 sustainable jobs. This directly connects this digital asset to real-world prosperity. It's a massive shift in thinking.
And that, right there, really brings it all home. The story of Bitcoin in Africa isn't about finance, or charts, or tech for its own sake. It is a deeply, profoundly human story. For millions of people, it represents a real path to freedom, to sovereignty, and yeah, to salvation from a system that has failed them.
So, I'll leave you with this question to chew on. After everything we've looked at today, maybe the most important story about Bitcoin has nothing to do with money at all, but everything to do with what happens when you give humanity a tool for hope.